It's time for Waking Up with Wesley. Today's forecast and weather-wide discussion with WLOX First Alert Weather Senior Meteorologist Wesley Williams.
Waking Up with Wesley is sponsored by Exclusive Auto Brokers. For the best deals on wheels, visit Exclusive Auto Brokers on Beatline Road in Long Beach.
All right, good morning. I'm Senior Meteorologist Wesley Williams, and thank you for watching this edition of Waking Up with Wesley. So this morning we are going to talk about the new information that just came out within the last hour or so, the drought monitor, which shows unfortunately worsening drought for South Mississippi, and we'll take a look at what that means, how it could affect life and property in our area as these drought conditions worsen. And then after that, we'll take a look at the tropics because the National Hurricane Center has highlighted an area in the East Gulf for possible tropical development. I'll take a look at that, but if you've been watching our forecast, there's probably not going to be any surprises because this is all related to how we've been talking about these weekend rain chances as well as breezier weather that could move in. But without further ado, let's take a look at that drought monitor. So this is that map that just came out within the last hour or so on Friday morning, showing a swath of severe drought in parts of Jackson County and in parts of southeastern Harrison County. This officially includes Gulfport, Biloxi, D'Iberville, St. Martin, Ocean Springs, Gulf Park Estates, parts of Goshen. Looks like that severe drought stops just to the west of Pascagoula. It does also include Van Cleve, so that orange area there, that will be that severe drought, and it is including all of these parts of southeastern Harrison and much of Jackson County. So all of those areas that I'm circling on the map under a severe drought. That's level 3 out of 5. There's only 5 stages of drought. Once you're into the 3, that means you're starting to see even more impacts. We can take a look at what these impacts are based on this information. So at level 1, creek flow is low. At level 2, you can sometimes see more wildfires occurring than normal. And sometimes you might also notice wildlife searching for water more frequently. Like you might see deer in places that you don't normally see them, as their normal drinking spot has dried up and they have to go find it elsewhere. And this goes for other types of wildlife as well, some birds and other animals that are in wildlife. But once you go to severe drought, in some places you can start to see the ground cracking, which could cause road damage. And sometimes you can see burn bans implemented, and cotton can become stressed as a crop, and sometimes auxiliary hay for cattle may have to begin being used. We do have a map from the Mississippi Forestry Commission. So let me take you there. This is what it looks like if you go to the Mississippi Forestry Commission's website. They have a section for burn bans. These are issued by the county, and the latest information does not show a burn ban for any of the 6 southernmost counties. Maybe that changes depending on how much rain we see. I would imagine the fire danger increases when you consider 3 factors. The first factor is how much of a drought you're in. We're at level 3 in parts of South Mississippi, so that's a check on that. The second factor is how windy is it going to be. And we're actually expecting breezier weather. If you've been following the forecast, this is no surprise. We're expecting breezier weather beginning today and continuing into the upcoming weekend. We got to check in that box. The final check is if there's any rain, like any rain recently or any rain coming up in the near future. And that is something that we're watching because there is a chance for some rain at some point by this weekend as we monitor some rain chances coming in from the Gulf. And so that's, not the third, we don't get that third check there because maybe some rain could help to save us from getting those burn bans implemented, even though it is drought, severe drought for some of us, and it is going to be breezy. I think one of the other things they look for is the relative humidity low, and we still have a decent amount of moisture in the air, so it's not like it's super dry where wildfires can spark rapidly. We don't have very dry relative humidity just yet. So that's one plus that is saving us probably from seeing more of those burn bans, more red flag warnings and such. But we are giving you this first alert. We've been first alerting you to this for multiple days now about the breezier pattern coming into this weekend, along with rain chances. There is still some uncertainty with the rain chances. So if you have weekend plans, it's still not a guarantee that we are going to see a whole lot of rain over South Mississippi. Even though our rain chance has increased a little bit, it's not to the level to where I think it's going to be a major washout for everyone. So the chances for rain kind of iffy, at least what I think. However, the chances for choppy boating conditions, that's a really high chance. The chance for coastal flooding for some places, that's a low chance, but it is a minor impact. So let's say that a different way. There's actually a high probability of coastal flooding, but the impact level from that is pretty minor, pretty low, because it's not going to like put water in homes, not going to put water in businesses, but it is going to just create just this very minor coastal flooding along the immediate shoreline in some places, and it probably won't even be enough to cause road closures. But let's get to the wind first. I told you it's turning breezier today. Here's a look at those wind gust speeds, what we're expecting. As we go to Thursday afternoon, expect the wind gusts to approach 20 miles per hour, especially along the coast. So it's going to stay that way in multiple days here, today and tomorrow, and Saturday we'll be dealing with multiple days of breezy weather. This probably will also continue into Saturday. The breeziest winds will be down along the shoreline near the beaches, but we can see some of that inland as well. I know we're talking about the tropics, so we'll take a look at the map. What's out there right now? You know, the Hurricane Center, they've circled this area that is about like right here. And what do we see there? Over Florida in the East Gulf. I don't really see anything that looks any type of organized there today. There's no low pressure there. There's no organized thunderstorms. There's no wind circulation trying to close off. It's just a bunch of disorganized showers and storms, and those are actually on the tail end of Hurricane Imelda. If we zoom this out and pan over a little bit, you can see Hurricane Imelda, which made a very rapid pass to the east of Bermuda. Now my satellite data is loading because I zoomed out. I changed the zoom level. But what I want you to watch is this little tail here. There's Imelda, and you've got this tail that extends away from Imelda toward the Bahamas. So that actually, if I circle it, let's let it pause right there. So you have this tail that stretches from Imelda all the way to the Bahamas, and that's where we're going to be watching for that low pressure to form closer to Florida off of the tail end of kind of an elongated area of low pressure from Imelda. It's almost like a frontal boundary of sorts, but it doesn't really have any much difference on either side of the boundary. So here's a look at that zone that's being monitored, and let's roll this back because this is going to go unless I hit pause. So there you can see in yellow where the National Hurricane Center is watching for possible tropical development with possible Gulf low. And for some reason, this does not want to hold my first frame, so we're going to reload it. Anyway, let's point out to you, there you go. Anywhere from the eastern Bahamas, or excuse me, the northern Bahamas, or near Florida, or in the eastern Gulf, somewhere there. Let's see if we can look at this and see if we find some type of low pressure trying to form. And now we're going to hit play on it. And I don't really see much based on today's modeling in that area. It's very subtle. It's very subtle. What I see is basically at the very end of this Saturday night, we see winds coming up like this and coming down like that. You know, if they completely closed off, then you could call it a low, but they actually don't completely close off. So it's just an open wave of low pressure by the time we get to Saturday night. That's why the chance for development with that is only 10%. And we can also Here we go again with not holding my first frame. We can take a look at that with the winds as well. So this is a look at the futurecast winds. We'll be looking in this zone to see if there's any type of closed wind circulation anywhere from the East Bahamas to Florida to the excuse me, I keep saying East Bahamas, excuse me, the North Bahamas over to Florida and the East Gulf. And, you know, we really don't see anything in that zone. I do mark where maybe there's that open wave of low pressure, and that's that Saturday night area, because you can see the winds coming up and over and down, but they never completely close off a complete circulation. So it's just an open wave of low pressure, and that's that kind of Gulf low or area of low pressure trying to form there. Now, this computer model only goes out to Saturday night. We can't really go much further in the future than that, but I think the general idea is that this is going to continue to drift toward the north and west, and as it generally drifts toward the north and the west, perhaps some of the rain chances can try to roll up into the coast. A lot of the rain is just going to be sitting out here in the Gulf, but if you have that low moving northwest, it's going to shove some of that rain more north. And you can kind of see this in the other futurecast as we press play on this. Again, never really seeing anything that defined through Saturday night, but you see all of this rain just sitting. Look how it's just sitting here, especially near the Louisiana coast, right? So if we've got this low that's trying to form right here, and this low is moving toward the north and the west, well, a lot of that rain might also begin to try to move to the north and the west after Saturday night. So that's Sunday, right? And that's why when you check these rain forecast maps, you're seeing that rain showing up on Sunday, because the models are indicating that, okay, even though a lot of that rain might stay offshore on Saturday, maybe at some point Sunday it begins to move inland, and so our 5-day rain potential does show that increase. Maybe a stray shower today, mostly dry in Mississippi tomorrow. A lot of rain, though, on the coast of Louisiana. I mean, look at the difference. That yellow color there, that's more than 2 inches of rain in coastal Louisiana, none on the Mississippi coast. Here's Saturday, more than 2 inches of rain again in coastal Louisiana, but then light rain, if any at all, on Saturday here, and that might not happen until Saturday night. If we take a look at, this is Sunday's computer models, right? Look at the difference. This is why there's model uncertainty and why it's so frustrating to a forecaster like me, because I keep checking these models. This is the 4th day this week I've checked these models, and not once has it been that I can come into work 2 days in a row and see these models say the same thing for at least 2 days in a row. It hasn't happened even once yet. So today we've got the European model, which shows, you know, a pretty soggy Sunday. I don't see any yellow there, so it's not like we're seeing some extreme rain or anything like that. Mostly light to moderate rain on Sunday morning, on Sunday in the middle of the day, on Sunday in the evening and at night. But then you got the GFS model up here where it's not much rain on Sunday morning, not much rain at all on Sunday during the middle of the day, and not much rain at all on Sunday evening or at Sunday night. So with that model uncertainty, that's why it's very difficult to get those rain chances to really come up much higher than what you've been seeing. You know, we're showing 40% now for Sunday. I think it's 30 to 40%. I don't think the chance has really changed that much from the information from yesterday, because there's just not enough model agreement and consistency. But the general trend does appear to be that we're going to go from Saturday night, when there's low pressure trying to form in the Gulf and a lot of rain offshore of Louisiana, to Sunday, when some of that might begin to all move north and maybe bring us a little bit of a wetter pattern in the local area, which, you know, as you saw with a severe drought, we could use it. We could use some additional rain in the area. I don't think this is a setup that's going to, since most of the heaviest rain is going to stay offshore, I don't think this is as likely that we're going to see enough rain to, you know, bring our drought to an end or anything like that. But it is going to be something that we're going to watch closely in case we can see some drought relief. Some drought relief is better than none at all. If I take a look at this rain map, I'm going to plot on the next 7 days worth of rain, and we'll zoom. This is supposed to be the next 7 days. There it is, the next 7 days worth of rain. And again, if you know, the one thing that hasn't changed this week is that the trend keeps most of the heavy stuff offshore. You've got rain amounts of more than 5 inches sitting out here in the open waters of the Gulf. And the good news for our weekend events outside is that there's never been a threat that really extreme rain is going to come ashore. It seems like no matter what happens here, the extreme rain is going to stay offshore. It's just a matter of kind of nailing down how much of this rain gets close to the coast. And because the Louisiana coast kind of pokes out more into this stuff than the Mississippi coast, that's why, you know, there are going to be places on land on the Louisiana coast that do get a taste of this extreme rain near the tip of the boot. But up here, where we sit up a little bit more to the north of that on the Mississippi coast, we don't poke out as far into the Gulf as they do. So we might not see as much of that rain moving along our shoreline. And this is through the next 7 days, through next Wednesday, that we don't see that coming up to our area. So that's one thing that has stayed consistent as we check the forecast each day. It does look like the worst of it could stay offshore. But while the rain is kind of iffy, the wind is certainly going to be something that we watch for, and that begins today. The breezy winds from the east and southeast, they will be noticed most along the coast. If you are inland, a place like Wiggins, you'll see a wind about 10 miles an hour at 4 o'clock this afternoon. A place like Ocean Springs and Bay St. Louis, a place south of I-10, the wind will be stronger, maybe around 15 miles per hour with a sustained wind and maybe even gusting higher than that. And we're all going to see this change from not as much wind this morning to a bit more wind as we go to the afternoon. As far as isolated showers are concerned, 10% chance this morning, 20% chance this afternoon. You know, we had a 20% chance of rain yesterday. I got 20% it on. It rained in my neck of the woods. So it is a possibility. Some of you could see some of these rain showers popping up in some spots later today. They're going to be isolated, but the chance is not zero. So there is a chance of some isolated showers, and it will be breezy with the most wind along the coast. This wind is coming in from the east. That could lead to the potential for coastal flooding. You can see, look at what the winds are doing this morning. They're coming in from the east, 12 miles an hour in Moss Point, 10 miles an hour in Biloxi, 18 miles an hour in Mobile right now. So it's really windy near Mobile. I think that's because that one site sits at the Mobile Regional Airport, which is on the west side of Mobile Bay, and you get that fetch of wind over the bay water. It helps the speed to increase, wind speed to increase, because it's running uninterrupted across the water there. But one thing that I'm watching is some sneaky lower humidity coming in this morning. We did find some lower dew points coming in from Alabama earlier this morning, and so that allowed for, look at the change here. Our air is not as muggy as it was yesterday morning. Yesterday morning we had dew points around 70. This morning they're in the lower 60s, so that's a plus. But be watching for this. We're first alerting you to the fact that I think we're going to see a coastal flood advisory issued today. This is probably going to be for parts of the Mississippi coast, parts of the Louisiana coast, especially for those shorelines that face the east, which would be Hancock County, places near Bay St. Louis and Waveland. The wind is going to be perpendicular to your shore, and when we get the high tide that comes in tomorrow morning, on Friday morning, it might come in a foot or two higher than usual. Probably not enough to cause road closures, but enough that there could be just some noticeable minor flooding down along the shoreline. So a lot to cover in the First Alert Weather Center that we're keeping track of. The worsening drought, the chance for tropical development in the Gulf this weekend, and you know, we're going to keep you up to date on all of that, as well as this breezier pattern that could lead to coastal flooding. So thanks for staying tuned for all of that information. You're much more informed now, and you know what to prepare for as we go into the upcoming next few days. That'll do it for this edition of Waking Up with Wesley. I've been Senior Meteorologist Wesley Williams. See you next time.
Waking Up with Wesley has been sponsored by Exclusive Auto Brokers. For the best deals on wheels, visit Exclusive Auto Brokers on Beatline Road in Long Beach.